So, reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 78. We started the last verse yesterday, which just reading the translation, that Sanjaya is saying, wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. So Sanjaya, we are reading of what Sanjaya has said and Prabhupada's purport. From Bhagavad Gita, we can understand that to realize oneself by philosophical speculation and by meditation is one process, but to fully surrender unto Krishna is the highest perfection. So there is some people who are trying to gain knowledge, and some are trying to do meditation to understand what's what. But by doing that, we won't be able to reach Krishna. The highest perfection is to reach Krishna. We just read in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The highest perfection of human life is to develop our unalloyed love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. The path of regulative principles, according to the orders of social life and according to the different courses of religion, may be a confidential path of knowledge. But although the rituals of religion are confidential, meditation and cultivation of knowledge are still more confidential. And surrender unto Krishna in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is the most confidential instruction. That is the essence of the 18th chapter. So then we know that there are so many rituals that people perform, and higher than those rituals, because rituals are most all performed for material desires. Then along the way, we get elevated in our consciousness, and then we want to gain knowledge that what's the truth? Am I really the body, or am I beyond it? And then as we are situated more in the truth, then we want to understand, so who is higher than me? And so we may take up meditation. So all these are there. All these are confidential progression in our path, in our consciousness. But surrender unto Krishna in devotional service, that is the most confidential instruction, because that is going to take us directly to Krishna. It's not the indirect path. Not that first we perform rituals, then we elevate our consciousness, then we try to gain knowledge, we elevate our consciousness some more, then we try to understand who is the Supreme, so we try to meditate. And so that is like a long process. If we have to go on a high-rise building on the 100th floor, we have a choice whether we want to take the stairs or we want to take the lift. So taking the stairs is like going through the process also of rituals, knowledge, meditation, because along the way we might get distracted, we might lose interest, we might have other desires that come up. But taking the elevator is the direct, bhakti process is the direct process. Surrender to Krishna. And our surrender to Krishna begins by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. The minute we start chanting Hare Krishna, our surrender process starts. And it's the most direct process. Another feature of Bhagavad Gita is that the actual truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The absolute truth is realized in three features: impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The perfect knowledge of the absolute truth means perfect knowledge of Krishna. So who's the Supreme Lord? Krishna is God. Krishna is God. Who's God? God is Krishna. Who's Krishna? Krishna is God, the Supreme God. Now he has three features. The absolute truth is realized in three features. One is the Brahma Jyoti, the light, as people call the divine light. One is the Paramatma, the super soul in everyone's heart. And then ultimately the Supreme Lord, Shyam Sundar Krishna, Brajendra Nandan Krishna. Perfect knowledge of The absolute truth means perfect knowledge of Krishna. So we have to understand that this light is coming is a feature of Krishna. The Paramatma in everyone's heart is another feature of Krishna. But Krishna, he is a person. If one understands Krishna, then all the departments of knowledge are part and parcel of that understanding. Krishna is transcendental, for he is always situated in his he's always situated in his eternal internal potency. So Krishna, his body is transcendental, is Satchidananda. He does not have a material body like us. Even though he comes to this material world, he does not accept a material body. He doesn't need to. His body is always transcendental. The example is always given. For example, if the president of the country goes inside the prison just to meet the prisoners, it's not that he is subjected to the laws of the prison. If the prisoner starts thinking that, oh, the president is here, means he's also a prisoner, he must have done something wrong and that's why he's a prisoner here, and so he can't get out and he is subject to the laws of the prison, then he's a fool. He doesn't realize that the president has just come to see the prisoners and see if anybody's rectified in their behavior so he can let them go. So same, Krishna is like that. So many people misunderstand, majority of us misunderstand that when Krishna comes to the material world, we think he's taken a material body, but no, he doesn't take a material body. The living entities are manifested of his energy and are divided into two classes, eternally conditioned and eternally liberated. So we are the living entities, all the living entities, the human beings, the animals, the plants, the aquatics, the birds, the trees, they're all living entities. And we are all Krishna's part and parcel. We are his marginal energy. And they are divided into two, eternally conditioned and eternally liberated. So the eternally liberated souls are those who never come to this material world. They are always situated in their perfect position as eternally loving servants of Krishna. They are in that relationship. They don't come to this material world. And then the second class is eternally conditioned. And those are us, that we are here in this material world because we think we are separate from Krishna. We are trying to enjoy separate from Krishna. And so that's the reason we are here. Such living entities are innumerable and they are considered fundamental parts of Krishna. So whether the living entities are here in the material world or whether they are in the spiritual world, all the living entities are parts and parcels of Krishna. It's not that once we go back to the spiritual world, we'll stop being a part of Krishna. No, Krishna still continues to maintain us. We will continue in our eternal relationship with Krishna. Material energy is manifested into 24 divisions. So material energy is manifested in 24 divisions. This is the Sankhya philosophy, in which it's the gross elements, the 5 gross elements, earth, water, air, fire, ether. These are the gross elements of any form that we see, anything that we see, it's made up of all of these things or some of these things. Earth, water, air, fire, ether. And then the subtle form of the subtle body made of intelligence, mind, and false ego. So these are 8. And then we have the senses, the eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, the skin. And these are the senses. Then we have the knowledge acquiring, these are the knowledge acquiring senses. Then we have the working senses, the hands, the legs, the voice, the anus and genitals. And then we have the sense objects. What is the sense object? What the eyes do is I see. So the form is the sense object. So sight. And then ears hear. So sound is an object. and then smell, fragrance, touch for the skin. So like that, when we break, that's just what the material world is, that we are so enamored by here. But this is what it is if we break it down. It's just dead matter. Anything living we see here in the material world is because the living entity is there, the soul is in it. Otherwise, this whole thing that we are so bewildered by, that we want to enjoy so much, is just made of these things and nothing else. Just these 24 things. The creation is affected by eternal time, and it is created and dissolved by external energy. This manifestation of the cosmic world repeatedly becomes visible and invisible. So we know by the will of the Lord, this material creation sometimes is manifest. When Mahavishnu breathes out, all the universes come out of his pores, and all the material creation takes place, and then all the living entities are again put into motion. And then when Mahavishnu breathes in, everything again goes inside the body of Mahavishnu, and we remain there till the time the next creation happens as individual souls. It's not that we merge into the body of Mahavishnu and become Mahavishnu. No, we are always eternally tiny souls. We live, we are eternal. Our individuality never gets lost. It's not at any point that you can become me and I can become you and we become one big blob of consciousness. No, we are eternal. So we can stop here for today because it's quite a detailed explanation and I don't want to rush it. Is that okay? Yeah. So Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Shla Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.